In just 54 seconds, one of the most beloved TV hosts in Britain completely destroyed a duchess on live television. What started as a simple conversation turned into an explosive meltdown where lies were exposed, voices were raised, and a former royal was sent packing from the studio in absolute disgrace. This is the story of how Alison Hammond took down Meghan Markle in front of millions. Before we get into this absolute car crash of an interview, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. We bring you daily videos exposing the royal family's darkest scandals, and trust me, you don't want to miss what we've got coming. Now let's get into what happened last night. The studio lights were blazing bright as Alison Hammond sat across from Meghan Markle on the set of her evening talk show. The audience was packed, cameras were rolling, and everyone expected a friendly chat. Meghan had been making the rounds promoting her new lifestyle brand, and Alison's show was supposed to be an easy stop. Safe, comfortable. But that's not what anyone got. Alison started off warm, as she always does. She was smiling, leaning forward in her seat, and she welcomed Meghan with genuine enthusiasm. The audience clapped. Meghan smiled, that smile she's perfected over the years, the one that looks gracious but somehow distant at the same time. She was wearing an expensive cream-colored outfit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and her hair was styled to perfection. "Meghan, lovely to have you here," Alison said, her Birmingham accent making everything sound friendly and approachable. "You look absolutely gorgeous, darling. Now, you've been busy lately, haven't you? Tell us what you've been up to." Meghan launched into her practice speech about her new brand, about empowering women, about authenticity and living your truth. She used all the buzzwords she always uses, the ones that sound meaningful but don't really say anything at all. Alison nodded along, smiling, but there was something in her eyes. Anyone who knows Alison knows that look. It's the look she gets when she's being polite, but she's already spotted something that doesn't sit right with her. "That's wonderful," Alison said when Meghan finally paused. "Really wonderful. But I've got to ask you something, sweetheart, because people have been talking about it, and I think we need to address it. You talk a lot about authenticity and being real with people, right? That's your whole thing?" Meghan's smile tightened just a fraction. "Yes, absolutely. I think it's so important to be genuine and to show up as your true self." Right, Alison said, nodding. But then her expression changed. The warmth was still there, but there was steel underneath it now. "So, can you explain to me, and I'm genuinely curious about this, can you explain how that fits with what happened with your staff? Because there's been reports, quite a lot of them actually, about how you treated the people who worked for you at the palace. People saying you were a bully. People leaving in tears. That doesn't sound very authentic to me, love." The audience went quiet. You could have heard a pin drop. Meghan's face froze for just a second, and then she laughed. It was that laugh she does when she's pretending something is ridiculous, but you can tell she's actually angry. "Oh, Alison, I think you've been reading too many tabloids," Meghan said, shaking her head. "Those stories were completely false. They were part of a calculated smear campaign against me because certain people didn't like that I was speaking my truth and standing up for myself." Alison didn't back down. She leaned back in her chair and crossed her arms, and anyone who knows her knows that's when things are about to get real. "A smear campaign? Really? Because these weren't just random tabloid rumors, were they? These were actual investigations, official complaints, people who worked for you, who gave up their careers to serve you, and they said you made their lives hell. Are all of those people liars?" Meghan's jaw tightened. "I was the one who was suffering. I was the one who was being attacked every single day in the press. I was suicidal, Alison. I've talked about this, and instead of getting support, I was being blamed for things that weren't true." "Nobody's saying you didn't have a hard time," Alison said, and her voice was still kind but firm. "But that doesn't answer my question. Did you or did you not treat your staff badly? Because you can have a hard time and still be responsible for how you treat other people. Those two things can both be true." The audience murmured in agreement. Meghan looked out at them, and you could see her realizing that this wasn't going the way she expected. This wasn't the softball interview she thought she'd be getting. "I think you're being incredibly unfair," Meghan said, and now there was an edge to her voice. "You're bringing up old allegations that have been thoroughly debunked. And you're doing it in a way that's designed to make me look bad. I came here to talk about my brand and the positive work I'm doing, not to be ambushed with tabloid gossip." "Debunked?" Alison said, raising her eyebrows. "Who debunked them? You? Because that's not the same thing, sweetheart. And I'm not trying to ambush you. I'm asking you a direct question. If you're all about truth and authenticity, then let's have some truth right now. Did you bully your staff or not?" Meghan's face was turning red now. "No, I did not. And I resent the implication. What you're doing right now is exactly what I've been dealing with for years. You're taking the word of anonymous sources and you're using it to attack me, and it's not fair and it's not right. They're not anonymous to the people who investigated." Alison shot back. "And I'm not attacking you. I'm asking you to be accountable. There's a difference. You can't go around saying you're all about honesty and realness and then dodge every difficult question that comes your way. That's not how it works." The tension in the studio was thick enough to cut with a knife. Meghan was gripping the armrests of her chair so hard her knuckles were turning white. "You know what? I don't have to sit here and listen to this. I agreed to come on your show because I thought you were different. I thought you were someone who would have a real conversation with me, not someone who would just parrot the same lies that everyone else has been saying for years." "Oh, no, no, no," Alison said, holding up a hand. "Don't you dare try to turn this around on me. I am having a real conversation with you. That's exactly what this is. You're the one who's not being real right now. You're deflecting and playing the victim and refusing to answer a simple bloody question." That last bit got a reaction from the audience. Some people gasped. Some people clapped. Alison doesn't usually swear on her show, and when she does, you know she means business. Meghan stood up halfway, like she was going to leave, but then she sat back down. "I'm not playing the victim. I am a victim. I've been victimized by the press, by the institution, by people like you who refuse to see the truth of what I went through." "And what about the truth of what other people went through because of you?" Alison fired back. "What about their truth? Or does only your truth matter?" The studio erupted. Half the audience was clapping for Alison. The other half was gasping at how heated this was getting. This was not normal daytime television. This was raw. This was real. And it was only getting worse. Meghan's eyes were blazing now. "How dare you? You have no idea what it's like to be in my position. You have no idea what it's like to be vilified every single day, to have your mental health destroyed, to have people questioning your every move and twisting your every word." "You're right," Alison said, and her voice was steady and strong. "I don't know what that's like, but I do know what it's like to be a working person trying to do my job. And I know what it's like when people in power treat people beneath them like dirt. And that's what you did, whether you want to admit it or not." "This is outrageous," Meghan said, shaking her head. "This is absolutely outrageous. You've brought me here under false pretenses to attack me on national television." "False pretenses?" Alison laughed, but it wasn't a friendly laugh. "Love, you came here to promote yourself. I'm just doing my job, which is to ask the questions that people actually want answers to. If you can't handle that, then maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews." The audience was fully on Alison's side now. You could feel the energy in the room shifting completely. People were nodding along with everything Alison said. Meghan could feel it too, and it was making her more and more agitated. "I've handled plenty of interviews," Meghan snapped. "I've sat down with Oprah. I've sat down with major journalists around the world, and none of them have treated me with this level of disrespect." "Maybe because they were too polite to ask you the hard questions," Alison said. "Or maybe because they had something to gain by keeping you happy. But I don't care about any of that. I care about the truth. And the truth is that you've hurt people, Meghan. Real people with real feelings and real lives. And instead of owning up to it and apologizing, you just keep blaming everyone else." Meghan's voice went up an octave. "I have nothing to apologize for. I was the one who was hurt. I was the one who was driven to the point where I didn't want to be alive anymore. And you're sitting here acting like I'm the villain? That's sick. That's actually sick." "Nobody's saying your pain doesn't matter," Alison said, and for a moment her voice softened. "But your pain doesn't cancel out the pain you caused other people. That's not how it works. You can be hurt and also hurt others. Both things can be true at the same time." "I didn't hurt anyone," Meghan shouted, and now she was fully yelling. The audience gasped again. I was trying to survive in an impossible situation. And yes, maybe I wasn't perfect, but I was doing the best I could. And for you to sit there and judge me when you have no idea what I was going through is beyond the pale. Alison wasn't backing down. If anything, Meghan's raised voice just made her more determined. I'm not judging you for not being perfect. I'm calling you out for refusing to take responsibility. There's a difference. And you're getting defensive because you know I'm right. You are not right, Meghan practically screamed. You are absolutely not right. You're just another person who's decided that I'm the villain of the story because it's easier than admitting that maybe, just maybe, the institution that's been around for 1,000 years might actually be the problem, not me. The institution has problems. Nobody's denying that, Alison said. But that doesn't mean you're perfect. That doesn't mean you get a free pass to treat people badly. You want to hold them accountable? Fine. But you need to be held accountable too. Meghan was breathing hard now. Her perfect composure was completely gone. Her hair wasn't quite so perfect anymore. Her makeup was starting to smudge a little from the heat of the studio lights and the stress. I don't have to listen to this. I really don't. I came here in good faith and you've turned this into a hit job. You came here to sell your brand and control the narrative, Alison corrected her. But that's not how real interviews work. Real interviews involve hard questions. If you can only handle softball questions that make you look good, then yeah, this probably isn't the show for you. The audience actually cheered at that. They cheered. And that seemed to be the final straw for Meghan. She stood up, this time for real, and started unhooking the microphone from her dress. This is unbelievable. This is genuinely unbelievable. I've been nothing but gracious, and I've tried to answer your questions honestly, and you've done nothing but attack me from the moment I sat down. I ask you one question, Alison said, still sitting calmly in her chair. One question about the bullying allegations. Everything else has been you getting defensive and refusing to answer. That's on you, not me. One question? Meghan laughed bitterly. You've been interrogating me like I'm on trial. You've been trying to make me look bad this entire time. I don't need to make you look bad, darling, Alison said, and her voice was cold now. You're doing that all by yourself. I just asked you to be honest, and you can't even do that. Meghan's hands were shaking as she fumbled with a microphone wire. You know what your problem is, Alison? Your problem is that you've bought into all the lies. You've swallowed the propaganda whole. And instead of seeing me as a human being who's been through hell, you see me as a convenient target. Well, I'm not going to be your target. I'm done. Yeah, you are done, Alison said, standing up now too, because you can't handle being challenged. You talk a big game about being strong and speaking your truth, but the second someone questions you, you fall apart. And that's sad. That's really sad. The audience was going wild now. Some people were cheering. Some people were booing, though it wasn't clear who they were booing. The energy was chaotic and electric. This was the kind of television moment that people would be talking about for weeks. Meghan finally got her microphone off and threw it down on the chair. I don't have to stand here and take this abuse. It's not abuse to ask you to be accountable, Alison shot back. But go ahead and leave. Run away. That's what you do, isn't it? When things get hard, you run. Screw you, Meghan said. And the bleep sound that the producers would have to add later couldn't hide what she said. Screw you, and screw this show, and screw everyone who believes your bullshit. Classy, Alison said, shaking her head. Real classy. The Duchess, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. So authentic, so real. Meghan was already walking toward the exit, her heels clicking loudly on the studio floor. A producer tried to stop her, tried to talk to her, but she pushed past them. Her security team materialized from somewhere and formed a barrier around her as she headed for the door. Alison called after her. Meghan, come back and finish the conversation. Be authentic. Be real. Isn't that what you're all about? But Meghan didn't turn around. She kept walking, her head held high even though her face was red, and you could tell she was either about to cry or scream or both. The studio doors opened and she disappeared through them, her security team following close behind. The audience was on their feet now. Some were clapping. Some were still gasping. Everyone was talking at once. It was absolute chaos. Alison stood there in the middle of it all, shaking her head slowly. "Well," she said, turning to the cameras. "That went well, didn't it?" The audience laughed nervously. The tension was starting to break now that Meghan was gone, but you could still feel the electricity in the air. This had been something special, something unprecedented. "I'm sorry you all had to see that," Alison continued, though she didn't really sound that sorry. "I was genuinely trying to have a real conversation. I wasn't trying to attack her. But I suppose when you're not used to being challenged, when you're used to everyone just nodding along and agreeing with everything you say, it can be a bit of a shock when someone asks you a difficult question." She sat back down in her chair, smoothing out her dress. "You know what? I like Meghan. Or I did. I wanted to like her. I wanted to hear her side of things. But you can't claim to be all about truth and authenticity and then refuse to be truthful and authentic when it matters. You just can't. It doesn't work that way." The audience clapped again, longer this time. They were fully on Alison's side. There was no doubt about it. "She said I was attacking her," Alison went on. "But asking someone to be accountable for their actions isn't an attack. It's just being honest. And if she can't handle honesty, well, that's her problem, not mine." A producer was in her ear, probably telling her they needed to go to commercial or wrap up or something. But Alison waved them off. "No, hang on. I want to say something. I want to say this to anyone watching at home. If someone hurts you, if someone treats you badly, you have every right to speak up about it. Even if that person has been through their own pain, even if that person has their own story, your hurt matters too. And nobody, I don't care if they're a duchess or a princess or the Queen of bloody England, nobody gets to dismiss your pain just because they have their own." The audience erupted in applause. This was why people loved Alison. She kept it real. She said what needed to be said, and she didn't back down, not even from a duchess. "Right," Alison said, clapping her hands together. "I think we need a little break after all that drama, don't you? We'll be right back. Hopefully, our next guest will actually stay for the whole interview." The audience laughed as the show cut to commercial. But backstage, it was pandemonium. Meghan was reportedly screaming at her team, demanding to know why they'd let her do this interview. Security was everywhere. Producers were running around trying to figure out what to do. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Alison's team was probably preparing for the fallout they knew was coming. Because this wasn't just a contentious interview. This was a full-blown disaster for Meghan's carefully crafted public image. The woman who'd built her entire brand on being authentic and truthful had just been exposed as someone who couldn't handle the truth when it was directed at her. The woman who talked about kindness and compassion had just told a beloved television host to screw off on live television. Back in the studio, as the commercial break ended, Alison returned to the screen with a different guest. She was all smiles again, as professional as ever. But everyone watching knew what they'd just witnessed. They'd seen a real moment. An unscripted, unplanned collision between someone asking hard questions and someone who couldn't handle them. The next segment went smoothly. Alison interviewed a celebrity chef about their new restaurant, and it was friendly and fun, and exactly what everyone expected from her show. But nobody was really paying attention to the chef. Everyone was still thinking about what had happened with Meghan. Everyone was still processing it. On social media, the clips were already going viral. Within an hour, they had millions of views. Within 2 hours, it was trending worldwide. People were taking sides. Some were defending Meghan, saying Alison had been too harsh. But most people, the vast majority of people, were siding with Alison. They were saying it was about time someone held Meghan accountable. It was about time someone asked her the hard questions. Think pieces were being written. News outlets were scrambling to cover it. Other talk shows were already planning segments about it. This was the interview that everyone would be talking about. Not just for days, but for weeks and maybe even months to come. And at the center of it all was Alison Hammond, who'd done nothing more than ask a straightforward question and refuse to accept non-answers. She'd treated Meghan the way she would treat any other guest, and Meghan hadn't been able to handle it. As the show wrapped up and Alison thanked her audience for watching, you could see a little smile playing at the corners of her mouth. She knew what she'd done. She knew this would be huge. But more than that, she knew she'd been right to push back. She'd been right to demand accountability, and she didn't regret it one bit. The studio audience gave her a standing ovation as the credits rolled. They knew they'd been part of something historic. They'd witnessed the moment when the carefully constructed facade finally cracked. When the authenticity expert was revealed to be anything but authentic. When the truth-teller couldn't handle the truth. And Meghan? Meghan was already in her car, speeding away from the studio, her team frantically making phone calls and trying to do damage control. But the damage was done. The interview was over, and she'd left in disgrace, exactly like the title of this video promised.